Today I will be teaching you how to create the perfect techno rumble kicks. In techno music, a kick rumble is a production technique to create a very powerful and groovy low end and makes a kick sound like it's in a warehouse and gives that really classic techno feeling to a track. I will be breaking down the complete process of building a techno rumble kick, and I will show you multiple techniques, each tailored to different styles and levels of music production. In this video, I will be using FL Studio, but all the techniques used in this video can be applied in any DAW because they rely on universal tools like EQ, delay, reverb and compression. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and with that being said, let's create a techno rumble. First of all, it's important to know the basic principles of a techno rumble kick and how it's built up. The rumble is created by sending the kick through a reverb to make it sound like it's in a warehouse, or using a delay for rhythmic movement. And you can also try to play around with a combination of both delay and reverb to smear out the sound a little bit more. After that, you typically add distortion or saturation to beef up the sound. Then you start filtering out the high frequencies with an EQ to make it sound more muffled and rumbly. And then finally, you add some sidechain compression so the rumble ducks every time the kick hits, which creates a cleaner mix. There are so many ways and techniques to create techno rumble kicks. These were just the basic principles and usually work well, but also try to experiment with a lot of different stuffs and you can break all the rules as long as something sounds good. Now that you know the basics of a techno rumble kick, let's start creating one from scratch. First, I have this kick from our Radiant pack, which sounds like this. It's a pretty hard-hitting 909 kick, and the tail of this kick is not that long, so we have enough space between the kicks to actually create the rumble. So if your kick becomes too long like this, there is no place for the rumble to play. So try to look for a kick that leaves some room for the rumble as well. If you want to check out all the samples that I'm using in this video, by the way, then make sure to check out our latest techno produced pack Radiant, which comes with a lot of kicks, also kick loops. And there are even rumble chains in there, which makes it even more easy to create techno rumble kicks. To create the rumble, I'm going to make a copy of this kick. So we have a new channel to work with. And the channel below here will be the rumble. So let me just rename it so it's a bit more clear. Now let's put this rumble into a mixer channel like so. And the first thing I'm going to do is to add a reverb to this kick to make it sound like it's in a big room or a warehouse. Increase the wet level and lower down the dry level a little bit, something like this. So let's solo the rumble signal. And here you can really experiment with different sizes and decay settings. Later on in the process, you will definitely hear the difference that it makes. But now let's increase the decay time a little bit, something like that. Another really important thing to do is to set the reverb or the whole channel to mono. So we're gonna decrease the stereo separation and make it completely mono. And this really helps to make your low end a little bit more clean. After the reverb, we're gonna distort the signal. And to do this, I'm using a plugin called Decapitator. Now let's just increase the drive and start really destroying the sound. Then an EQ to filter out a lot of the high frequencies. And let's do it something like this. Let's play the main kick now as well. And now you're already getting that rumble sound. Let's boost a little bit of the low end. Something like that. Now let's add another EQ to shape the sound even more. I'm gonna duck in some frequencies at 200 Hertz. Something like that. Now if we go back to the reverb and we start tweaking parameters such as the size or decay, you can really shape the rumble to how you want it. So let's start playing around with the size and the diffusion maybe. Bigger size. And then finally, at the end of this chain, I'm going to add a plugin called Kickstart, which basically does sidechaining on the rumble, changes the shape a little bit. And let's boost the rumble a little bit in volume as well. And you want to look for that sweet spot where it's not ducking in too much of the rumble. Sounds like a kind of glued kick together. Now let's send both the kick and the rumble to a bus so we can apply an effect to them both. And I will be adding a fruity soft clipper to this to add a little bit of soft clipping to the whole kick rumble. Lower down the threshold. Adds a little bit of harmonics as well, which is nice. Just a little bit of clipping. Once you have your kick rumble exactly how you want it, it's useful to resample the whole kick rumble so you can create a very clean and constant kick rumble. So every time it hits the same instead of variations, because the reverb is of course not always exactly the same. To do that, I'm gonna just record this in Edison on the master channel and record the kick a few times. Let's select one of the kicks. This one, let's look for the start of the sample, and then it should stop exactly here. And then we have a very clean one hit of the kick rumble, and then we can start looping this. So every time it hits the same, like this. Add a loop. And now you have created your very own basic techno kick rumble. To take it up a notch, you can also create a second chain, which will be more of a percussive and atmospheric rumble, and which will play more of mid and high frequencies instead of these really low ones that the rumble already has. So let's create this very percussive, gritty mid layer. I'm again gonna copy the kick, make it unique, and let's rename this to like a mid layer. Now let's solo this one. Send it to a mixer channel as well, which is also being sent to the kick group. Call this like that. To create this rhythmic layer, I'm going to be using a delay. I'm going to set the time to 3, which creates a nice groovy pattern. Then you want to completely lower down the dry level, so you only have the wet signal of the delay coming out of it. Like that. And I'm just gonna leave the settings for this delay as it is right now. Now to destroy this sound, I'm going to add a decapitator once again, but you can of course use another distortion plugin if you like. Fruity Loops also has some pretty great distortion ones. Let's set on punish mode. Really distort it. Something like that. Then let's add an EQ to filter out the sound. I'm going to remove all of the low frequencies up until the mid frequencies are only playing here. And here you can just start like playing around with different frequency cutoff. Let's enable the full kick. Lower down the volume of it as well. You can make it sound really sharp. Maybe lower down the high frequencies as well. That sounds cool. And again, you can experiment with a lot of different stuff. Maybe just slap on a reverb to give it a little bit more room. Decrease the stereo separation so it's more mono. And now let's put on a kickstart for some sidechaining, like this. And you can start playing around with the filter. Make it more gritty. And in this way you can create a kind of percussive element, add some rhythm to the rumble as well. Of course, if you want to keep it more clean, you can just lower down the volume or completely remove it. But it's nice sometimes to introduce a layer like this one to add a bit more rhythm and groove to the full rumble. If your techno rumble kick is not punchy enough, which happens sometimes, it really depends on the sample you're using, but sometimes it helps to add a little top kick to the full rumble, which makes the kick cut through a little bit better in your mix. From our Radiant pack we have a bunch of top kicks. Let's use this one and together with the rest. You can start hearing that it's adding a bit more punch to the overall kick. Let's put this in a mixer channel as well and route it to the kick group. Here you can also experiment with a little bit of reverb, maybe to give it some room. Make sure it's mono. And for this I'll be using a short decay time. Just a little trick which can help to make your whole rumble cut through the mix a little bit better, especially if you're listening on systems like a phone or some cheap speakers. There's not that much low-end information there, so a top kick like this can really help to make it still cut through the speakers. Another way of creating a techno rumble that I want to show you is by using a tom rhythm like this one. And we're gonna be using these toms to create a really low and fat techno rumble layer underneath the kick. So right now, together with the kick, these toms sound like this. I'm using two different tom sounds. The first one sounds like this, and then the second one is this one. And they are playing this groovy pattern. Right now, these tom drums mostly have mid-frequency information in there, and there's not that much low end, which you really want for your techno rumble to sound full. To make it sound more low and like a rumble, I'm going to pitch the first tom down by 15 semitones, which is quite a lot and makes it sound a bit weird, like super low. And then let's also pitch down the other tom by 8. You can just experiment with different pitch values. Also sounds cool. The key point here is to make your tom sound like really low, and you can do it easily by pitching it down, even though the sound quality of it decreases them. But now let's go to the mixer channel of both these toms, which is this one, and we can start applying effects and play around with effects that we already used in the other rumble, which I just showed you. For instance, we can add a little bit of reverb. Again, make it mono. A decapitator for some distortion. Now you have a pretty interesting tom rumble, which could work already, but I'm going to roll off a little bit of the low end, so it sounds more like an actual rumble and a little bit muffled as well. And if you listen closely, you can still hear the rhythmic pattern the tom has, which is nice. And also filter down all the way. Just depends on the sound you want to go for. And let's add some kickstart for some sidechain as well, to keep it a little bit cleaner in the mix. You can also use other percussion and just pitch it really low to get a rumble sound out of it. There are so many ways on how you can do it. It's insane, but I would suggest to really experiment with a lot of different stuff, like adding a delay or a reverb or a combination of both on top of it can be really cool. Just make sure at the end of the chain you sidechain it properly, make it mono, and then eventually resample it when you have a finished rumble, so you can really keep it a little bit more clean in your mix, even though it's a pretty weird and hard sound to work with in your mix. Now you should be able to create your very own techno rumble kicks. If you have any questions regarding techniques or things that I did in this video, then feel free to drop a comment and I will try to get back to you on there and help you with your techno rumbles. If you want to check out some techno samples, then make sure to check out our brand new pack Radiant. I will leave a link in the description for it as well, or you can just click the link over here probably. For now, I want to thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you in the next video.